We are looking at family finances, especially the aspect of budgeting and what we should be using our money on. And we have seen that a good family budget will certainly have money allocated to God's work, and we call that giving back to God. Why should you do that? We saw it because you yourself are called to accomplish things for the kingdom of God. And if you are called to that place, it will involve everything about you, including your money. And so you will give part of your money to God's work. And we also saw that it's important because it's a way of saying thank you to God who has given you 100%, and you are giving just a little back to His work. And also we say it's a way of telling Him, I'm still dependent upon you. I don't have enough. I need more to be able to meet my needs. So I'm declaring my dependence upon you. But we said it is you need to give to initially to God. Then you need to give to government. The first two. Then you need to give to self. After you've given to God, to the community, which is government, then you now can remember yourself. Then we now change from there to thinking about your neighbors. That's what we call that giving to the needy. Then finally we looked at savings and investments, which are very important. And the very concept of having contingency money that you can use even if you are not included it in your budget. And that is important. But today let's just look at why you need to put money for use by the government. In Romans chapter 13, we read in verse 6, this is also why you pay taxes. For the authorities are God's servants who give their full time to governing. Give everyone what you owe him. If you owe taxes, pay taxes. If revenue, then revenue. If respect, then respect. If honor, then honor. So when you are budgeting, you must remember this particular instruction that you owe. There's something you owe. What do you owe? Out of what God has given you, you owe taxes. Who do you give taxes? To the government authorities. Why should you give them money? Because in order to run society properly, God allows governance. Governance is critical. Can you imagine if there's no governance, what happens? It is anarchy. Anarchy is where everybody does whatever they choose to do, when they choose to do, how they choose to do. And fallen creature, what that would mean is exploitation of others. The compensation will be on how little can I give and yet enjoy more than you. That's human nature. It's because we are fallen creatures. We tend to be self-centered, selfish. Because we are selfish, without some system that enforces our doing good to our neighbors, there will be trouble in the country. It's the same thing even in a church. If you have no governance in a church, soon enough that church will not grow. It's important to understand for the mission of the church to thrive, they will need governance. Similarly, for the mission of community to thrive, you need governance. And for the nation, a whole nation to thrive, it will need governance. And then you can't have governance when there's no way of facilitating it. Because the people who go to help the community to organize have left their farms and their organization. They therefore don't have an income. So we employ them. We who are in business, in farming, in other things, we take a little of our money to pay them so that they can play the role of creating order in our society, in our group. So why should we pay taxes? So that we have an orderly society. And God is saying it is in God's interest to have orderly society. Therefore, He is calling the people who work for the community through government. He's calling them God's servant. You know, hardly any other career can quote a Bible verse to say they are servants of God. Generally speaking, pastors are the ones who think they are God's servant. Please read one more. The president, the minister, the chief, the district commissioner, the county governor, because they are all doing that job of creating order in society. They are God's servant. They are doing that work. They are doing is God's work. And so Paul is calling them God's servants. And if they are God's servants, then we will need part of our money to pay for their upkeep. And initially it's governance. But the second thing is when you work together in government, it's not just a question of good governance. There is also the issue, very important issue of creating an atmosphere where the best can thrive. Creating an atmosphere where people's gifts can be exploited to the fullest for the good of society and for the benefit of the holder of the gift. And that's the responsibility of the government to create it. That's why they organize for education. You can imagine if everybody did homeschooling, the number of people who will be tied up in their homes and not available for the good of society will be many. But when you have one teacher to 20 children, then it means that one teacher is the only one we need to pay. The government needs to pay. We others, the parents of all the other children, can be busy doing other economic activities. Obviously, sometimes it's worse. If you give 100 children to one teacher, then obviously they can't cope and the children will be the losers. But what you are saying is there is an optimum number. But whatever that optimum number, who will pay for the teacher? And there is a work of the government to gather resources that will ensure the education system is working. And it's not just necessarily working, it also has standards. I want somebody to work on the farm. How do I know whether he is trained? It's the responsibility of this government to certify some certification system so that me as a farmer, when I want to employ somebody who is going to help me on the farm, I can actually trust the certificate. And that's the work of the government. Again, if they are not there, if government is not there, I'll have to try the guy only to discover I've wasted 1 week, I've wasted 2 weeks with him. He doesn't know anything about farming. And it's the same thing with whether I'm in IT or in banking or whatever business I'm in. It's the responsibility of the government to create this certification process. But the people creating certification process are not farming themselves. They are not in business. So somebody needs to pay their expenses, and that's why we need to pay our taxes so that they can be there. So not only is there does having these taxes help with creating order in society, it also helps to create an atmosphere where people can thrive. They can be the very best. If I'm in business, I'll consider on business because now certification process has been taken over by the government. But the government must be given money to do that kind of thing, and that will be important. But I think the judiciary, which is part of government, is one of the most critical reasons why we pay our taxes. You need a group of people who are trained in law. So whatever you're arguing about, they know about it. They know how to get the truth and make proper decisions. So we need people who are trained. We also need people who have the time. Because if you keep asking me to come and help you to be the arbiter in your problem with your neighbor, I have to leave my work to come. I can do it once in a while, but if I have to do it regularly, how will I eat? Where will I get something to eat? And that's why the magistrate and the judiciary generally have to be paid. And in the process, if they have to be well paid so that they don't get tempted to leave their work. Because you see, if they don't exist, we will leave us to fight it out between us. So first, they are trained. Number two, they have the time. Number three, they have a system of fairness, and they know what to do to get proper information so that they can make a decision. The moment I know that there's a judiciary I can trust, then if you come quarreling me, I will not fight you. I'll just say, let's take this matter to court. If there's no court to go to, or if the court is not actually reliable, what does that then mean? It means we fight it out. And that's why traditional society was full of violence. Because they didn't have a system between this tribe and that tribe. There was no system that would help them to know what the truth is. And so they fought each other, and the most violent, they would always be the one winning, not necessarily the best person. So it's important to understand that we pay our taxes so that we do not end up fighting between ourselves because of unfairness. And you need to ask yourself what would happen. You see in bigger economies, sometimes after elections, people still disagree. But instead of killing each other, they take the matter to court. And whatever the court decides is final. I think I remember the Bush and Gore election, I think the second round of the younger Bush. And there was quite, I think it's Florida or whatever, there was quite an issue. But they never caused violence, no bloodshed. They just wait until the court rules and they go on. So we can see clearly, if we are going to have peace and be able to thrive in whatever God has called us to do, we also need to pay some money so that we can pay some judges. And then they will do the right, the judges will do the right thing, will be honest. And once they are honest and are doing the right thing, then we can enjoy our work and be able to agree that, for example, if I'm suspicious, so-and-so is the one who took something, I take them to court. Once the judge says you are not the one, I will apologize and say, sorry, I thought it was you, I lost something. And then we can go on, because now both of us know what the truth is. We can go on and continue being good neighbors and friends. So it's important to see there is a role you need to play if you really want peace and want things to happen in a good way. So he's saying this is why you pay taxes. Why? Number one, because taxes are like serving God. Because the people whose salary you are meeting through your tax are God's servant. Number two, because these people do not have any other job. Paul is calling them full-time in governing. They are full-time in governing. If you are doing governing, but just a short while, you don't have to ask money. It's a pity when you ask an elder to come and arbitrate between you and he wants to be paid. No, those are not the ones we pay. We pay the ones that are, according to Romans 13, verse 6, who are in full-time in governing. Somebody who cannot meet his cost through other means. So there will still be governance done on voluntary basis, but not by people who are full-time. And I think that will be something that we have to deal with. So those are the people. Why should we give our taxes? Because if you owe the taxes, you must pay the taxes. It's debt. And there's a debt that needs to be cleared. So when you are cheating on taxes, you're not just cheating the government. You are cheating God, who wants you to pay taxes. My guess is that if people are in hell and asking each other, why are you here? Some will say, I committed adultery. Others will say, I never paid my taxes. Because God is the one saying, pay your taxes. The same God that says, don't commit adultery is saying, don't fail to pay taxes. And so it will be important, any family that intends to honor God must find a way of ensuring that they meet their taxes. And the good thing is the tax is not taking all your money. It only takes a bit of it. And that will be important. Matthew 22, verse 17, continues with the same message. Says, tell us then, what is your opinion? Is it right to pay taxes to Caesar or not? That's a question to Jesus. Verse 18, but Jesus, knowing their evil intent, said, you hypocrites, why are you trying to trap me? Show me the coin used for paying the tax. They brought him a denarius, and he asked them, whose portrait is this? And whose inscription? Verse 21, Caesar's, they replied. Then he said to them, give to Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God's. So do not steal from Caesar. If you actually steal from Caesar, we can give you a title, social parasite. You are enjoying society's goodies without wanting to pay for it. So you are a parasite. And you wouldn't be a good family if you are the kind of family that is parasitical. You are enjoying the community benefits. You drive on a road. The road was not made by your family. It was made by the government. Shouldn't you have the courtesy of participating in its maintenance? That's something we can say. You have health facilities owned by the government. Why health facilities? Because diseases will come, and the government prepares to ensure that they meet the health of the people. If you choose to have every home a hospital, there'll be trouble. Why? There are not enough doctors to spread around. 2, it will be very expensive because everyone has to build their own clinic, and there will be many, many small clinics, and they will lose economies of scale. And thirdly, if you choose to stay with your hospital, it will mean that the very best doctors who is in the neighboring place will not be available to you, like happens when you do it together. So you can see the work of the government will be to create a health system which will be then cheaper per person, and the very best doctors are available. And that will be something that you need to think about. So Jesus tells them, give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. And of course, he is very graphic in it, in the sense he is saying, this very money, the coin, tells you that there needed to be a government. Because your money cannot be my money. We need to sit and agree what kind of thing is legal tender, what is money. So you need government to create a monetary system that will help with trade and help with the things we are dealing with each other. How do we pay? What is money? It's the same thing. So Jesus is asking them, you are handling money? Caesar has made it possible, and you don't want to pay him taxes? Give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and to God what belongs to God. And I think in the process, we learn that anybody, like I've just said, who does not pay his taxes happily means he has a parasitical mind. He's a parasite. He wants to enjoy all that the government is offering free of charge. And when I say government, it may be the judiciary. And even if you haven't been to a magistrate's court or to a judge so far, the many disagreements are normally sorted out. We can take it to court to say, no, let's agree. So that even without anybody taking the other to court, the very fact that the court is there and is accepted means that many disputes dissipate before they become a crisis. All that is happening because there is a government, because there's somebody who is doing the right thing. So, tell us then, they told Jesus, what is your opinion? Is it right to pay taxes to Caesar or not? Of course, this one brings a new topic. Caesar was a colonial government. Caesar was not elected. Caesar was not desired or admired. Caesar enforced himself on the people of Judah. And so we can see clear the question here is worse. Maybe if it's our own government, it's our own leaders, I can understand why to pay taxes. But this guy is not one of us. How do you do that? And of course, a lot of people do the same. They keep saying, there's so much corruption, I'll not pay taxes. Very interesting way of dealing with the matter, because you are still enjoying the road, you are still enjoying things that the money has done, but you don't trust the system they use. You believe a lot of money is going through corruption. I do agree that whoever said that there's no taxation without representation, I think it's a very true statement, that you need to find a way of, the executive is the one using the taxes, the legislature must hold the executive to account. And you must have a member who represents you in parliament, yourself, so that if you are going to be supporting the government work, there is somebody who is checking them and who can certify whether good things are happening or not. And I think that would be important. But it's an issue we need to deal with ourselves, because sometimes you feel like, how do we budget for taxes when there's so much corruption? But the question is, there's so much corruption, what has happened in the process? It means you would have been having better services, but you're still having some level of service. So who will pay for it? You leave the others to meet the bill and become a parasite? You need to work on both. You need to continue paying taxes, and you need to also, as you visit your representative and let him follow up and hold the government to account, so that the people who are corrupt can actually be prosecuted. Before then, you still need to show up and do the right thing in terms of paying your taxes. That will be important. So, what have we seen? Paying taxes. We pay taxes because it gives you good governance. You are therefore able to thrive with the gift God has given you, because you can concentrate on it. Number 3, you enjoy economies of scale on major services that everybody requires. And I've given 2 examples, like education. Instead of everybody starting their own school at their home, we make one school, and therefore one teacher, properly educated professional, is able to release 20 parents to go to their area of economic activity, all because we are paying the government in order for the government to meet the cost of the teacher. And then we also say that it helps with fairness, where we, instead of us fighting, we can treat each other fairly. Why? When you don't, there's an independent party that can help you to verify whether what was done to you is fair or not, with the capacity to punish the evildoer once they have listened to the case. All that, the judiciary is part of the reason you pay your taxes, and the judiciary helps us not to fight, not to shed blood, because now we know there is somebody we can trust who will investigate fully and arrive at a conclusion that we all can accept. I think that will be important. So, as we go towards finishing, we need to budget money. My guess is that it needs to be given up front. If you don't give your tax up front, there are chances you will use the money in other ways, and in the end you end up not paying the taxes. Then you end up in court with the government. You end up, you hate the government, but really it all began from lack of discipline in terms of paying your taxes. Because there are taxes that are easy to pay, like VAT, because every time you buy a cup of tea, inside it is a tax. And you don't pay the tax itself, you pay for the tea. But the tea contains some money that will go to the government. So it's important to understand the way you collect taxes also matters and can create havoc or be helpful. But what are you doing that is helping the system to be better, that's holding the government to account, even as you think about the many things that society requires? So taxes are a means of creating a cohesive society, and it is important that we actually are involved in it. But we also said that it will be important that you participate in elections, so that you elect someone whom you believe in, and having elected him, hold him to account. Let him take the executive on and verify that any money you give, whether little or much, is actually being used in a way that honors God, in a way that benefits the community. Because you see, there are some civil servants who use the taxes for their own benefit. That needs to be pointed out, and they need to be punished for misuse of tax. That will be something that we have to do something about. So should you give your money to a government that you haven't supported? My suggestion is, if you're enjoying the services, you also must pay the taxes, but continue and fight so that you can get a better government. But you don't hold taxes first in order to do the other one and continue enjoying services paid for by your neighbors. That parasitic behavior is not a biblically sanctioned kind of behavior. The Bible is saying, pay your taxes, and that will be important. And the Bible implies when we pay our taxes, you are serving God, because you are supporting God's servant. He said, the book of Romans calls them God's servant, which is an important thing to think about. So, as a family, do you pay your taxes? Do you ensure that you do not evade your taxes? Although you can avoid them, that means there's a way you can package your income so that you don't pay as much tax as if you package it in a different way. And it's not illegal, it's allowed. Since the government has set up what the taxes are, your responsibility is to ensure you pay them. But there's a way you can put your money. For example, if part of the money you put to pension, then it means that you can enjoy it without paying tax on it, because pension is not taxable. The government has decided as a way of encouraging people to pay tax. So anybody in a pension scheme is actually benefiting, because he's saving money, and the money will not be taxed. And that will be helpful. So we need to see that the tax is doing what it was meant to do, and that it brings glory to God when you serve him through the government. So, what about you in government? Please remember, God himself will hold you to account. If you don't use that money in the very best way, number one, that benefits the community. Number two, that honors God. You can say marry a woman or say public money, and so you end up buying an egg that costs 2 shillings. You start buying it at 4 shillings. After all, it's not my money. God himself will hold you accountable. It's our responsibility to pay taxes. For you as government, it's your responsibility to ensure every shilling has been well spent with integrity, and that it brings glory to God.